Welcome to the Leasing Lounge podcast, your go-to source for all things leasing and property management related. Whether you're a seasoned associate or brand new to the team, this podcast is designed to provide you with valuable insights, expert tips, and real-life stories to help you make informed decisions and succeed in the industry. Join us each week as we dive into topics with our guests who will empower you with knowledge and strategies to elevate your skills and enhance your success. So grab your favorite beverage, coffee or tea, pull up a chair, and join us in the Leasing Lounge. Jesse Serna, welcome to the Leasing Lounge podcast. I am so excited to have you here today because you have 25 years experience in property management, in the multifamily business, and I just want to tap into all of that and try to get a sense of what your career has been like and get some great takeaways from you today that we can share. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your career in property management.
Well, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. It's been a real honor. My name is Jesse Serna. I was brought into the industry 25 years ago, a pure novice. I had no inkling of what the industry entailed, nor managing people. I think that was the biggest eye-opener, is the multiple personalities that we face on a daily basis.
Your career in property management is kind of an unusual one, at least in our current climate, where you started on the service side and then at some point made a transition over to directing a property. I'd love to hear you describe what that was like and identify some of the points on the calendar.
I was a service manager for 2 years, learning about the industry. When faced with a challenge, I'll do the best I can. I think someone recognized my attributes as having a personality, a problem solver, and a means of connecting with the residents, and they felt that might be an attribute to come into the office. So I was asked if I would be interested in working in the leasing office, at which point I denied. I did not want to do that. But really? I never shied away from a challenge. And I know as I slept on that, I knew I had to do it. I knew I had to face this challenge, my fear. As I morphed into that role, I understood that becoming a CD was going to be extremely challenging for me. And if it was a career path I wanted to follow, as I became more comfortable with understanding numbers and budgets and disgruntled residents and negotiating with renewals and the day-to-day operations, I started getting comfortable and confident, and I felt that I could be ready. Fortunately, an opportunity came up way too soon. They asked me if I would take the role, and reluctantly, I did.
Reluctantly. I love it. I've only known you as a community director, and I would have imagined you just had 25 years of straight community director experience, but I think it is really rare and unique that you started in the service side. Do you think that was beneficial for you running a property, learning about systems, learning about the grounds, learning about vendor negotiation, things like that? Do you think that was a great benefit to you? And could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that's exactly the best benefit of any manager, is understanding the ongoings with your maintenance team, the issues that are inside a home. So understanding about plumbing leaks, understand about issues with appliances, understanding about things that you can relate to the tenant, to empathize with them and also have a quick resolution, understanding that this isn't a significant problem, it is an issue, but we can get it resolved in a timely manner. I think that was extremely beneficial. When you're discussing issues with the tenant who's disgruntled about a multitude of things, you're able to address those issues and understand exactly what they're speaking of. Whether it's a lighting issue, whether it's a faucet issue, whether it's a drain issue, you understand that.
Yeah, and you might also understand how long it's going to take to fix those issues, what needs to be ordered to take care of those issues. Those are very vital elements of this conversation that if you have no idea, you're really just kind of making it up.
Yeah, it was very beneficial letting people know that this resolution will take at least 2 days, having a timeline, explaining the process of a ceiling leak repair or a cracked tub that needs to be replaced. And that's all the residents really want. That's what your clients want, is a timeline, and more importantly, they just want knowledge. They just want to know, be kept in the loop. And it was instrumental.
Agree. I grew up in construction. I was, swinging a hammer. From a very early age, I was learning the business and watching my dad communicate with people. And I think it's been incredibly beneficial to me coming into real estate, understanding the construction process, because we do so many capital projects, we do so many remediation projects. The average person doesn't have any idea, all of the design elements that go into those, the planning, the bidding, the negotiation with vendors, all of that is just incredibly beneficial to have some experience in prior to going into management, because it's a huge part of our job. So your experience was rare in that sense, and yet I would only define you as a community director. Do you think that's fair?
I think that is fair. The last 20 plus years of my career has been specifically working as a property manager, negotiating and navigating through some of the challenges, trying to understand how can we make this feasible with a budget that might be a challenge, understanding how to save money on the maintenance side of it. It's a huge benefit.
Yeah, without sacrificing quality, without sacrificing efficiency.
Exactly.
It's a real balancing act. And Jesse, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, how do you measure success over your career?
Success to me, it's not what you possess monetarily. It's not a degree. Success to me comes within. Success to me means being the best individual you can be a giving person, being the best sibling, son, spouse, father. I think that to me, true success is being able to fulfill the needs of your family, but also to understand what your role might be in this world.
Welcome back to the Leasing Lounge podcast. Please enjoy this narrative session where we delve into stories that shape the leasing industry and aim to foster a deeper connection between our listeners and the leasing world. Let's head back over to the Leasing Lounge. One of the things that I think about in life is how much we've overcome in our lives and the jumps we've taken in our careers. Now's a great time for you to reflect on that as you're closing yours out in multifamily. You've kind of touched on this privately with me a few times. You've gained a lot of inspiration from your mom and what she went through in her life. I would love it if you would share a little bit about her story and her work career and how it inspired you.
Thank you. It's a great question. My mother is definitely the rock of our family. She had 10 children, and she was a great spouse to my father, who is now deceased. But she was a loving, doting mother who had such kindness. She was a firm woman, but kindness. She loved to help people. She would give the shirt off her back. My mother was also illiterate and didn't understand what that meant as a child. As I got older, I understood that I was a little ashamed of that. Today, I realize just how incredible this lady was to be able to forge through an era where it was challenging, the country was changing, a lot of strife within our society. But she was able to get her 10 children through high school, graduates, and a couple went on to college. So she is definitely the rock and the motivator for myself to see the world from her eyes, the beauty in the world, make a difference.
Tell us a little bit about her working career as an illiterate person. I think that is incredibly interesting. How does it actually relate to who you are as well, is what I'm curious about.
My mother was in customer service. She worked for one of the smaller medical operations, but she was a transporter, so she was able to transport elderly and those who did not drive to make their appointments. And she roamed from Tacoma to Renton, and again, she was unable to read. It was an era where they didn't have GPS, they didn't have anything, so she relied heavily on, I believe it was a photographic memory. So she used landmarks and what limited ability she could read for road signs, but never missed an appointment. But she generally cared for other people. Her sole purpose was to make sure that those in need got the medical attention she needed. She started at Boeing and had a 12-year career at Boeing. That was amazing. She had the least amount of rework, and when she retired, they had to have a couple people replace her to keep the production up.
That's interesting. I'm always fascinated about people who have some sort of block that doesn't conform with the norm and how they overcome it. Her not being able to read must have been an incredible struggle in terms of trying to figure out and navigate the workplace. You also mentioned one time that when it was sort of discovered that she had this challenge, some people tried to kind of flex on her and say, let's have her take a written test and see if she can perform the job.
My mother had a great following of people. She had a couple of managers who really felt that they didn't want to lose her on the production line because she was very effective and very proficient. So they wanted to give her a test, a written test. Well, that's kind of challenging when you can't read and write. So one of the generals, a higher up Boeing manager, said, let's give her a verbal test. And my understanding is she aced the test.
Absolutely.
When I learned of that, it just empowered me to believe that there's no challenge I shouldn't be willing to take on.
Right.
So
yeah, I think about it in terms of I always relate things back to music as music was so influential in my life. I never really learned to read music, and I know a ton of musicians out there that don't really read music, yet they create phenomenal, emotional, connective music that we all love. I think some of it is just us being stubborn and not taking the time to learn to read it and focusing on other things. But I also feel like it's created this place where people can think outside the box, tap into portions of the mind and the brain where they normally wouldn't have to because the information's always there with them in a book or in a notepad. So her photographic memory has probably been formed by the fact that she isn't able to read. So that is really a great story and inspirational, and it helps me think about, how we can overcome things that maybe we think are blocks in our way.
True. It enlightened me. I challenged myself in this role. Not a day goes by that I have my own doubts, my own inferiority complex. But again, when you surround yourself with good people, you see your contribution. Sometimes it's hard for me to realize if I've had a positive impact on my associates, my peers. I have to believe that I've done some good. And I think if it's any indication, a 25-year career in a challenging industry, I have to believe I succeeded.
Yeah, you certainly have. Shakespeare says, doubt is the knife that kills. I really believe that. I think that it is that voice in your head that sometimes you have to it's always going to be there. It's like fight or flight, right? It's always going to be there, but you have to quiet it down and tell it like, no, I'm going to move on and I'm going to conquer and I'm going to do great things. That's the Jesse we see in the office, is the guy who is not doubting himself. You can be vulnerable at times as well and honest and true to yourself, but you are very confident. And one of the things I think that we should talk about is your ability to connect with people and the relationships you have. It's interesting because you're a self-described introvert, and yet everybody knows you and feels connected to you and feels like they could reach out to you at any point in time. It's kind of incredible. I mean, I know people have even left the company and you still keep in touch with them and they still feel like you're a resource for them and a friend. So talk a little bit about the value of those connections.
I'm a people pleaser. I didn't realize that. But I love people. I love to help those who are in need. If I can be a resource to them, absolutely. I don't know why I feel I'm a privileged man, but I've always felt that I'm a privileged person. Regardless of the complications or struggles I went through in life, I just felt that I'm on top of the world. And I've had some challenges in my life. But when someone is in need, it's an uncontrollable feeling I have to support them. And I don't know where it comes from. I just know that if someone's in need or someone's in doubt, you may be the difference that day. You could make a difference at that moment. And to see someone smile or see they still have hope, then maybe that's what my purpose in this world was.
That's right. When we talk about helping those in need, it's not just about emotional. It's not really just about, this person needs you. It's they need to know how to do something sometimes. A program for financing, budget prep. My boss is asking me for this report. How do I pull it? Those type of connections that you've made and those relationships you've built with people have made it so easy for them to come to you and easy for you to go to them and connect and find a way to navigate business and overcome challenges with residents and overcome challenges with whatever goal you're trying to achieve. What I've seen and heard in the background is that your connections have made it so much more efficient for you as well as your peers to perform and achieve. And I think that it's really easy to go to your property and get stuck there and think like, I'm running this property and, just feel like you're on your own island. You have been able to kind of knock that down. And I know this from firsthand experience because I used to be a manager and a peer to you. And you were always a reliable person. I could almost count on you connecting with me once a day. And with that, it also opened the door for me to be vulnerable and ask you questions and lean into you for advice on how to get to my goals and achieve my goals, and also support you when I could. You're absolutely right. I think that is the value of those relationships. And when you talk about helping someone in need, I think it's not necessarily someone who's suffering, but someone who maybe just needs to know how to do something. So that's a really valuable point.
I do thank you, Kevin, and I get, just to clarify, it may not be work related, or it may be work related, but it's just developing that relationship. And I always wanted to be available to those. I found it rather flattering when someone asked me a question when I know they're 3 times as smart as I was. And it just made me feel good that, okay, maybe I'm not as too hard on myself. Maybe I know just a little bit more than I think I do. Developing the relationships helped me understand myself better, and it also can contribute to the benefit of another. Hey, a senior manager still has some doubts at times.
I still have moments where I will call up my peers and ask them what they're doing, what they're planning, how they're going into a meeting, and what they're communicating to their teams. And I think it's really valuable. I always get something and I always share something with them. And it's this beautiful relationship. And if you're not doing it because your ego's getting in the way, or you're afraid to admit that you have some doubt or some lack of confidence in some category, you're failing essentially. It's because you definitely want to reach out and get that help. And it's incredible. I can relate to that, Jesse. And I can also relate to the fact that it's hard to make that call sometimes because there's that voice in your head that says, well, I should have this all figured out by now. I have this position. I've been doing it for a long time. I should have it all figured out, right? But then that other voice is saying, yeah, maybe you should make the call and run this by somebody. And that's such a challenging balance for so many of us.
I have to give credit where credit is due. And Aneesa Peterson gave us a book many years ago. I think it was by Brene Brown. And I think the name of the title of the book was Daring to be Vulnerable. I think that's what it is. Daring to be great. It was basically understanding the terminology of vulnerability and what does that really mean. From a baby boomer, we were taught to never show vulnerability. When I was in my late 40s, I understood the concept that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It is a strong individual who has the courage to ask a question or to admit, I don't understand this. And that was the light bulb that kicked off. I think that was the light bulb that said, hey, you don't have to know everything. Someone else may know it. Just have the courage to ask that person. Be vulnerable. I don't understand what I'm doing here. Can you please help me? And you'll be surprised that you may just awaken that peer who says, thank you, because I didn't understand it either. I honestly feel it's very important that I recognize that individual, because without that person, I may not have had a 25-year career with this company, because it changed my way of thinking a decade ago. It's inspiring to see younger generations come in who are brilliant, and then you start realizing that your time is coming where you will be replaced. And it's not you being replaced, it's just the natural progress of people retiring or...
Yeah, many of us are hoping to be replaced at some point, and I joke around about that, but I'm deadly serious, because there's nothing more satisfying than investing in people and seeing them grow, and then knowing that they can take on what you are doing and you can do something new and creative and interesting. Jesse, as you close out your career in multifamily housing, what are some of the lessons you've learned that you'd like to share?
You have to continue to be motivated every single day. You have to have a vision of what you want to accomplish that day, and more importantly, persevere. If we're not moving forward, we become stagnant and we'll get passed by your competitor. Mm-hmm. So Every day, be the best you can be. Inspire and motivate your team. Make sure you're meeting the goals of the corporate and have that connection with your upper management so that there is not a lag in what you perceive they want and or you understanding what they truly want.
What are you going to miss most about this industry?
Believe it or not, it's going to be putting out fires, the controlled chaos, the unexpected visit, all those challenges that we take for granted.
That's interesting. You're saying the thing you're going to miss the most is the unexpected and trying to solve for that and take all of that experience that you have and putting it towards something you didn't even know was going to happen, which is every day in property management, putting out that fire. And, Jesse, you're one of the properties that have actually had a literal trash fire. One of your trash compactors burned up in a fire. Who would have thought that would have ever been an issue that you'd have to go take care of? And you did such a great job with it. I just think about that one thing you're describing that you're going to miss, I think in many cases can be the thing that drives people away from this industry. So that says a lot about you. I really love what you said there, Jesse. The thing you're going to miss most is putting out the fires, taking your experience, your knowledge, your passion, and your care for your residents and your property and finding a way to make things better for people is definitely something I've seen you do many, many times. I'm surprised on some level that you didn't say, and I was kind of expecting you to say, I'm going to miss the people the most, the connections I've made. But, now that I think about it, why would you miss them? Because you're still going to stay connected with them. So one question I have for you is, how would you like to stay connected?
Regardless if they want me to stay connected with them, I'm going to. So I already made it perfectly clear to many associates that I will be hitting you up. It's just my nature to razz people. Laughter is the best medicine. And just for a moment, if you can chuckle through a difficult day, it just gives you that moment to clear your mind, release some endorphins, and then get back on it.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Leasing Lounge. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion and gained valuable insights into the world of property management. If you have any questions, topics you'd like us to discuss, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us at leasingloungepodcast@gmail.com. We'd like to give special thanks to our guests that joined us today, our co-producer Janica Cho. All music on the Leasing Lounge is created by me. Until next time, stay informed, stay inspired, and happy leasing from all of us here at the Leasing Lounge.